All right. Here we are back at the first of our today's two talks. And let's start with Elizabeth. Oh, I'm sorry. I got to change the setting here. Hold on. I'll turn mute.
Could Ward just re-explain the last part that Sam read, the part that's realization entails remaining fully awake in sound sleep? That conceptual.
So Baba, yeah. Baba is, these 5 states. So realization is 5. And in that state, you're sound asleep and wide awake at the same time. That's God realization. So in our daily cycle, 1, 2, and 3, it's like we break the unity of realization into parts. We experience it in its pieces one at a time. And all you need to do to get God realized tonight is when you go to sleep, just remain awake. That's all. But it sort of gives an idea how close we are to realization of God. It takes billions of years, but we're actually that close. That's all that is entailed. And these 5 states, you find these in Baba's discourses all over the place. In God's hand, you know, that handwritten thing, he gave his own chart of it. He drew it. And in Infinite Intelligence, it's all over the place. Tiffin lectures everywhere. In God Speaks, there's actually one of his figures is on the same subject. So this was a basic theme for Baba. And I'll say that there's a clear relationship to Vedanta here. One of the Upanishads, I think it's the Mandukya Upanishad, talks about sound sleep, dream, wakefulness, and then what it calls Turiya Avasta, the 4th state, which there refers to being awake in sound sleep, God realization. So there's clearly a relationship here between Baba's account and that in Vedanta. But Baba has developed this in a new way by making it 5 states. So this 4th state, divine dream, it's going back into the dream state, but remaining completely wide awake. That's what the experience of the planes is. So you see, there's a beautiful symmetry of this. We go through wakefulness, dream, sound sleep, dream, wakefulness. But when you cross the divide, you start to dream, but wide awake, you remain wide awake. And when you get God realized, you're sound sleep and wide awake. So the entire journey of the soul can be represented in terms of these 3 states becoming 5 states, a big basic idea in Baba's darshana.
And what are those dots for? You know, there's straight lines above and then dotted lines below, and a dotted line to the B, and a dotted line from realization to God realization, and a dotted line from A until the first ordinary state. Yeah,
this was just done by, we took this original, but they are here actually in the source. I think it's just to show the connection that you're supposed to read these horizontally. Each state is, from top to bottom. It's a vertical state. The vertical line are the different representations and elements in a single state. That's all that means as far as I can see.
But the dots, the dotted ones, did Baba put in the dotted ones? It's hard to see in the book.
There seems to be that way. Yeah.
So my guess is he meant something by it, but I don't know what, unless he means descending into that or a transition.
Yeah.
You enlarged the original drawing for us there at the bottom.
Unfortunately, I've enlarged as much as I can.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Maybe there is some significance to it. I don't know what it would be.
Thank you.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Do you want to?
Okay, Jim or Karen Levine, whoever you are,
Okay.
your many masks.
I just wanted to make a comment.
Mm,
Looking at this figure 15 reminded me, you know, of course, that I spent 8.5 years in the seminary studying for the priesthood and got immersed in Christian theology quite a bit. And there's a very important parallel between the direction we face while proceeding to the ordinary states and then the direction we face while proceeding to the divine states. In the Catholic theology is a term called metanoia. And metanoia means turning. So in the Easter Vigil, the midnight vigil, Easter, there is the idea that God is light. And so the idea of metanoia is our ordinary state is to be constantly looking at the shadow, which kind of reminds me of this ordinary dream and awake states. But then we have to turn toward the light. And of course, in the spiritual understanding would be that we make this really deep conversion, you know, or deep change within ourselves where we reorient the direction we are facing. And that was a very powerful point in many of the theological writings of the mystics and so on, was this idea of metanoia, of having to turn to the right direction. I just thought this kind of reflected that very nicely.
Do you know how to spell that, Jim?
Well, I didn't hear you.
Do you know how to spell that?
Metanoia. Meta means after, and I think noia, the root of noia is like gnosis.
Yeah.
So it's, you receive this knowledge, and after you receive this knowledge, then you turn in the right direction. So Baba is giving us this revelation that we are caught up in the shadow and we must turn to the light.
You know, Baba is going to use the word turning a lot, really a lot later in this series of lectures, big time. But I hadn't thought of it in connection with this diagram. You know, Baba, I think there are maybe 12 or 15 either diagrams or tables in Baba's various books on this theme of these 5 states. But this is the only one. You see, we are dealing, I wish I could expand it more, but you see in the source diagram, we have these little shadow caps. So we spent a lot of time, Nadia and I, trying to understand what that meant. And it does seem to mean the metanoia, as you're talking about. This is the only time when he shows these 5 states that he makes this particular point, that when you're sound asleep, as a gross conscious soul, there is a kind of a latent orientation back towards the gross. Whereas when you're on the planes, there's a latent orientation towards the higher planes. Nowhere else does he make that point when he's talking about these 5 states. Isn't it neat? Can't you picture Baba taking his cap off and showing these states? Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. As I say, turning is really going to come up later on.
Till we get dizzy.
Yeah.
Marianne. Lucia.
Yeah. Ward, I just want to make sure I understand that correctly. So Baba, he's the one who drew the source diagrams that we look at.
You see, we're just working from, I'm sorry, I jumped pages. We're just working from a manuscript. And so a lot of this is inference. But I would, in some of the diagrams here, it seems to me there are actual indications that one of the mandali would have drawn them, and probably on some kind of a board that was there in the room, and might have been used over the course of several days. And whoever, in this drafting this manuscript, they were incorporated by Chanji or whoever drew them and put them in the manuscript. Now, in a case like this, whether I think it's unlikely that a diagram was used in Baba's actual lectures, because he was doing it right there. He was doing it in front of their eyes. But the mandali, Chanji probably, to represent what Baba had shown, probably drew it. Or maybe there was a diagram drawn too. That could be. But I think the overwhelming probability is, when we had diagrams used, the mandali drew it according to Baba's directions. Baba showed them how to do it. Showed what he wanted.
Okay. All right. And then table 3 that we had in the first lecture today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Table
Right.
3. Yeah. Is that like the other graph, that box graph that you did in the previous lecture? Is that editor's creation? You and Nadia
Yes.
created this?
Yeah.
Okay.
We would, it wouldn't have been a box graph like this, but it would have been in rows, handwritten. But we made it into something that looks nicer. But all this content was there in the source manuscript.
Great. Thank you.
And we have Lindsay. Oops, I was trying to ask you to mute. Unmute again. There you go.
Yeah. Jim, thank you so much for bringing that up about looking to the light or reversing yourself. I guess when I was listening, I was thinking, here Baba is again saying you have to reverse yourself. And that you don't get that kind of message, or at least I didn't get that kind of message in discourses, which I think was written for people who hope to be seekers or are seekers, and how simple it is. He's making it for these boys to just say, reverse yourself. And when you reverse yourself, Baba or God, will help you reverse your sanskaras, hulat sanskaras, and all you have to do is love. I mean, that's such a clear message. It's so straightforward. It's, hard to do, I think, without, he is helping them do that. And he's telling them what their experience is, I suspect. So I just wanted to.
It's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I never thought of that. But this emphasis on reverse yourself is really not there in the discourses, is it?
I don't think so.
I mean, you could make it relatable to what Baba does say in the discourses. Maybe the reason is that his audience here was of kids who were really on the brink of the path, whereas discourses is written to humanity in general, and it's not advice that humanity in general is ready for or something.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking so much of this at some level is giving language to experiences that can be had and maybe in process. And yet, if you don't have language, if you don't have a symbolic way of representing that, it can be very, you can get lost in it, I think.
Don't you think in the discourses, Baba uses the term adjustment a lot? And it's not that you adjust somebody else, you adjust yourself. So this is a kind of an internal turning and changing the way you see and think and feel. So, and maybe in that way, he's talking about reversing.
I mean, discourses clearly gives the same metaphysical content. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But that language of reversing, there was an episode in the full book when it's available and you get it, where right after Baba finished these lectures, second half of January, there's a episode with Ali. Remember Ali? He's the hero of Sobs and Throbs. And Baba had been kind of poking and provoking him, where Baba would keep calling him in and then sending him out, calling him in and sending him out. And then he would say, you know, Ali is really not much interested in me anymore. He just wants to do his studies and go back to be with his father. Whereas in fact, Ali was love mad. And at that point, Ali began weeping so uncontrollably that they were afraid he was going to die. He was, you know, this gasping, and they were really afraid he was going to die. And finally, Baba took him, and Baba put Baba's head on Ali's chest, and Ali became completely silent. And then they pulled his eyes open, and his eyes were turned looking inward, looking back. I don't know if that can happen physiologically, but it happened apparently. So that's like a physical illustration of this reversal thing happening at that time.
Yeah, well, you know, to me, it's my turn, by the way. To me, the metanoia is exactly the same as turning inward that Baba is always advising us to do. And I remember reading a book by, I think his name was Daniel, I can't think of his name now, but it was called, I can't even think of the name of the book. Anyway, what he proposed was that you let yourself step back. Whatever is going on for you, if you step back or fall back, he says at one point, and give yourself that physically, that distance, that starts to create an inward turning so that you're turning more inwardly directed. And I find that relevant in this. Yeah.
Well, and back in this figure here, you see the reverse path. You see, that's the turning back. And you do have in that figure in the divine theme, any of you who may remember it, where actually it's in Rano's drawing of the divine theme also, where you have Sanskaras winding through evolution, and then the loops go the other way, unwinding. And this word here, ulat, you can see the ulat marg. This is one of a pair of terms, and Baba has a whole section in Infinite Intelligence on this. Sulat and ulat. When you're engaged in ordinary binding activity, you know, like in evolution or as a human being, you know, you're just going about your greedy, lustful, angry, daily life experience, you acquire sulat sanskaras. Those are ordinary, obverse is the actual word. But when you reverse the sanskaras, you're getting ulat sanskaras. Those are reverse sanskaras. And ulat sanskaras kill the sulat sanskaras. There's a whole section in Infinite Intelligence on that. So that's relevant to what we're talking about here also.
And my other comment was that to me, I think this, what we're reading here and in Infinite Intelligence, in the old days, in the old avataric advents, would have been considered secret knowledge and would have been kept from the common reader. But we're in a new age now where all of that is available.
I think that's true.
Cheryl, Jai Baba.
Hey, Baba, yeah, I just wanted to ask Jim. I loved what you said, Jim, and I wanted to write down. I didn't capture it. When Was this ceremony, did you say it the night before Christmas? When did you say this was, where it's part of the whole Catholic ceremony? When you talked about metanoia and you used,
It's at not the Christmas, but the Easter vigil.
that would make more sense.
Yeah, Christ is in the tomb, and at the vigil, there is this process where the singing starts at a very low, and it continues to go higher and higher, with the idea of the light coming in the dawn, and the light gets brighter and brighter as the Christ rises from the tomb. And so that light that is the Christ is what we are to turn toward.
Yeah. Thank you. That was so beautiful. It's just to know that there was this deep mystical meaning to some of the things that I experienced as a child. I wasn't Catholic, but I did was required to go to church every Sunday. And anyway, thank you. I'm crying. It's lovely. Yeah. And also Baba constantly is saying you're turning out, you're looking out. What you need to do is to look in, which is the same as we've been talking about just now. And the cap, the image of the Baba's cap, his Parsi cap, and metanoia. It's after, I like your definition of meta is after, and gnosis is knowledge, and anoia is gnosis or knowing. So after what you really know, you turn towards the light when you're really beginning to know.
If you don't
automatically start to turn.
Yeah, if it doesn't transform your life, it's useless, right? I mean, knowledge for its own sake doesn't really work with Baba. He wants us to turn it to love. So, that idea.
But this is all helping me get it on a deeper level somehow in my soma.
Yeah, these are good connections.
I'm sorry?
These are good connection. I hadn't even thought about turning in relation to these things we're on now, but once he starts getting into the spiritual path later on, this is an insistent theme of his. You have to turn.
And that turning is an act of will. I think that's important. Okay, Elizabeth.
Well, I was just going to make a comment on the same thing. A number of months ago, I can't remember where, Ward, it was probably in one of your discussions, and you mentioned this hat. And ever since then, I've noticed that this turning and this reversal and winding and unwinding is consistent throughout almost everything Baba writes. And once you're alerted to it, you see it everywhere. I mean, I can't, and I think it's because you referred to this book. And so it's also, I think it must be consistent in almost all spiritual literature. I mean, whether it's Jesus or somebody else. But it just makes it, the red hat makes it so clear that it's a change of attention, a change of focus, and the change from the outside to the inside, the real self.
In Francis Brabazon's Stay with God, also, he brings up the theme very prominently, especially in the fourth book, The Steps to His Feet. He talks about how you have to turn. Yeah, it's probably a theme across a bunch of the religions. I bet it is.
Lindsay, did you have something?
Yeah.
Try again to unmute. There you go.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about 6 divisions and 7 divisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you count, like if there's 7 planes and number 1, then, all right, the simplest way to say it is a division the space between the states, or is it the states that are created by the divisions when energy occurs? So there are actually 6 spaces between 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 5, 5 and 6, 6 and 7.
Right.
So that would be 6 divisions, or there are 7 plane,
States. Yeah.
which are divisions. They got created at the moment of Pran and Akash doing their thing. So I just think that's there. And it caused me to have another question, which is not exactly here, but I've always been confused by the fact that there's a seventh plane, because it's God realization, right? So why would
Right.
there be a seventh plane in the subtle world? And I guess it's because many people don't drop their bodies right away. They get realization. And in order to have
Yeah.
a form, you have to have the subtle world still something existing. Does that sound right? And you may not want to address it, but
No, I think that I think that's very good. I've had that thought too. This question of 6 and 7 does come up. I'm scrolling ahead. When you actually get the book, there's going to be an appendix that addresses all of this. Where is it? Yeah, this is mystical astronomy. Yeah, there's a section on now I'm forgetting where it is. Anyway, I won't try to find it now, but there is a section that talks about the division of 6 and 7, various divisions of the 7 kingdoms of evolution and other matters of that kind. Yeah, sometimes Baba will say in infinite intelligence 6 also, because the 7th is in its own category. And what you're saying, I kind of like that when you're a Majub, you're actually in the 7th plane, but from the standpoint of other people, you're still within the universe. So you'd say, well, where is this Majub? Well, he's on the 7th plane.
yeah. Thank you.
So that's a great thought. Yeah, this is this business of the division of energy into 6, and he's going to make it 7 later, into 7 layers, is really new information. Let me show you this diagram, which is going to come up, where this one here, this is the flow of Pran down from the 7th plane down to the gross. And you'll notice at the 4th stage, which is the 4th sky, it breaks into 7 layers. So I had thought when he's talking about the division of Pran into 6 divisions or 7, that refers to the 6 planes. But it's apparently not as simple as that, because this breaking happens on the 4th plane. He says on the 5th plane, this is Pran is coming down, right? It's a descent. So when it reaches the 5th plane, the vibration starts to happen, and that causes energy to get broken into these 7 layers. So that's new information, whatever on earth it means.
And Cheryl?
Oh, I'm unmuted already. I just want, it's a little awkward to go back to the former conversation, but Ward, you mentioned that in the discourses, there is not the word, the language, I wrote it down, what you said, the language of reversing is not there. And yet adjustment is, as you said, I don't remember this, but you said it was there throughout the discourses of adjustment. And so I think Baba's on a vibrational level, in a way, setting the scene for us to turn, for the reading or exposed to the idea of turning, because it says I looked up adjustment and various on my, whatever sources of background of words, and it means also the act of making a change. Adjustment is the act of making a change, making an alteration or modification. So I just want to say, for me, I was picking up on it subtly, that turning, that doing something different from what we have been doing is throughout then the discourses, although I've never taken note of the use of that particular word throughout the discourses, but I just find that He is introducing it. It's just not so specific and appalling as the discourses used to be for me in the beginning. When I first became a Baba lover, I had to quit reading them. They made me so upset because I was so far away from doing what Baba was asking us to do. And I said, I can't read this. So for several years, I didn't. And then I started going every Monday night to the center after I moved here. So it made a change, an adjustment. Something adjusted me.
Glad you made it.
Yeah, me too.
Elizabeth.
Ward, I was just thinking about all these turnings in evolution, and Baba said the Barzaks actually face two ways. It's like that little red cat facing one way and then the other. Any comments on that?
When you get the book, in one of the appendixes, topic of Barzaks is brought up. Yeah, in Beams from the Spiritual Panorama, Baba talked about that, how the Barzak, he didn't use the word Barzak, by the way, although it's not a bad term for it. But these transitional species have to be able to move both ways, both toward the kingdom of evolution that they're leaving and the kingdom of evolution that they're gaining admission to. That's distinctive about those species. We're going to get some, this book will give some new information about some of those transitional species, by the way, like between worm and fish kingdom, the transitional species is the tortoise. There's new information. And between plant, anyway, there are going to be a bunch of these forms are identified here that we didn't know about before. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a comment about an underlying theme that I always see in these, which is, Baba tells us everything began with movement and space. That movement is constant. It's always about change, always about change. Every moment that we engage with change is a moment of growth. That's how I look at it. So all through various studies, particularly in Buddhism, which, I'm hung up on, the idea of change, any little change that you willfully make causes a ripple in your being that can create an opening for God's grace. That's how I look at it. So I just wanted to make that comment. And I also wanted to bring up that we've got a lot of time left. What do folks want to do?
Read.
Want to read some more?
You could read some more.
Well, we're on the discussion. We're on the discussion thing. We could go back over what we read and see if there are any questions. I don't know. Jim Karen.
Let me just bring out some of what he said here about the division into 6 or 7, because one of his points is that it happens instantly. And he makes this analogy of the snake, that when it coils, it just happens. It's not like one coil and then a second coil and then a third coil. No, it happens all at once. And as I mentioned with this diagram coming up later, Pran breaks into 7 subdivisions all at one moment on the 4th plane. And this is a fundamental difference between Pran and Akash. Remember, Pran is comprising the subtle sphere, the subtle universe, and Akash is comprising the gross. But Akash, the gross, remains single. It never breaks into parts. But Pran does. And to me, this intuitively makes some sense. So I think of Pran or Akash is capacity or opening or provision of space for something to happen. And in its nature, that's what it doesn't have parts. Emptiness or space doesn't have parts, but movement naturally breaks into 7. He's going to say more about this, how the 4th is always the biggest. Out of 7 waves, the 4th is the biggest.
Hey, Jim.
I was just kind of musing. I hate to overlap infinite intelligence too much. I mean, I know we want to concentrate on this, but the figure 14 seems like a kind of a beginning or rudimentary diagram of what Baba calls the crossing lines of thinking and realization. Whereas the white part up there, which is Paramatma, in infinite intelligence, he continues those lines up to thinking and imagination. So I just thought how interesting it is that this diagram is kind of a early form of the crossing lines. Do you get that feeling, Ward, at all?
Well, the difference is that these are the gross and the subtle, not the thinking and the imagination. So it's a different topic in that way. But it certainly is visibly similar to it, especially in the origination. This diagram here, the top right, is looking a lot like it.
Yeah, just wondered what you thought.
This was a real, we spent a long time deciding whether to put in this top panel or not, because these two diagrams here, source diagrams, see those two there, were found on a manuscript on a completely different page, although it's clearly related to this. So it could just be that these were early drafts and they decided on this one, in which case we probably should have just skipped it. But they're so interesting and they seem to show the formation and the emergence of these two spheres that we decided.
Those are so light you can hardly see them. And that other picture that you did, I don't know if you describe that top part with the brown blobs. Yeah, I don't really understand what they mean. Maybe I missed something.
Well, what we took them to mean was the process of the subtle emerge and the gross differentiating and emerging. So this one, you see the subtle as a single ball, and the gross over here. And here you have the subtle with the 7 or 6 layers differentiating from each other. And this is the full formed creation with the subtle and the gross and the jivatma traveling through it. So we looked at it as a narrative, a kind of a process. That's how we interpreted these diagrams. But that might be wrong. These might just be drafts and these were discarded.
So could you count the lines?
Elizabeth,
Yeah, this is probably the same question.
it doesn't matter.
Can you count the lines? Are there 6 lines and 7 spaces or vice versa?
Yeah, well, these are 1. I don't know if you can see my hand here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 basic lines. And the spaces between them are basically 7. We just did that as a way of including both 6 and 7, because later on he says it breaks into 7 divisions. Although Lindsay was making the point that in fact we could have 6 divisions creating 7 different spaces. I think that's very likely to be true.
So Cheryl's had her hand up for a while, so please let's respect each other's hands. Go ahead.
Again, for Ward, you've done so much with Stay with God and with art and with images. I'm wondering, years ago, before I came to Bob, I saw this incredible Tibetan tanka of the Buddha standing on the back of a tortoise, and you just brought that up, that that form, the tortoise, is the Barzak between worm and fish. But it always struck me, it's like, why on the back of a tortoise? And I've seen it since. I'm wondering if you had any knowledge about that archetypal symbol, obviously, or Krishna, Buddha wouldn't be standing or sitting on a tortoise.
I don't know anything about it, and that really takes us too far afield. from this. I
Yeah,
just don't know
I'm
anything
sorry,
about
I
it.
didn't think about
Mm.
that. I just,
Mm.
yeah. But we were talking about Barzak, so that's why. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You know, we're going to have a one of these lectures where Baba goes through the evolutionary series, and these are going to come up. And again, this appendix has a whole section on that. I tried to bring together all the information I could find on these from all sources on these transitional species.
So I wanted to just make a note of the fact that it's interesting to me that it's the diagrams that we discuss. There's very little discussion about the text itself. I'm just wondering if there's anything in the text that anybody had a question about or was interested in.
Yeah, it's kind of
exploring.
easier because the diagrams are very visual.
Yeah, and they're very important. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Mary, you have your hand up.
Hmm.
Oh, you have to unmute, dear. Can you unmute? There you go.
Sorry.
Yeah, there we go.
I actually realized I was waving instead of putting my hand up. This isn't a well-formed question. This is just this thing that keeps coming up to me. I remember being at the coast one year, and it was actually at the women's retreat, the Baba Portland group's women's retreat. And so, you know, there was a very beautiful Baba feeling. And so I'm standing there watching the waves. And for the first time, I mean, maybe this is obvious to the whole world, but for the first time, it struck me that when the waves crested and broke, that's when the energy was released. Is there some way to relate that to the wave and the trough, Akash and Pran?
I don't know enough about it, but those are the sorts of things that people are going to study in the future, I'm sure. Yeah, I don't really have any expertise on that. I was just reading today, anyway, I won't go into it, about the ratio 1 to 7 is where the wave breaks, all that kind of thing.
Oh, they say the 7th wave is the big one. It sounds interesting if you want to share it.
Well, later on in this series, Baba does talk about the 7 waves, and he says that the energy rises to its greatest height on the 4th. And that, you notice the 4th plane is in fact the plane of power. The last 3 lectures, he's going to come back to about, but now we're going to have Pran flowing down from the 7th plane down to the gross sphere. He looks at it from a completely different point of view. But let's see.
There's a saying in Buddhism that everything reflects the Dharma. And, you know, I think that's true. As you look at everything in life, you can pick out how these things are reflected in every form and every activity.
Fractal.
So you notice in this diagram and the text that explains it, Baba's going, you know, enter Pran and Akash, and the Pran is the source of the whole inner universe, the subtle sphere, and Akash is the source of the gross sphere. You notice how in those who have really studied infinite intelligence, you have to deal with the fact that, you know, gross and subtle, you have actually 3 spheres, gross, subtle, and fine. He brings up the fine, and fine refers to things back in the state of latency or sound sleep. And anyway, this use of gross and subtle contrasts with what you get in God Speaks and Discourses, where it's gross and subtle and mental. But to me, you know, I actually, both of these ways of representing cosmological representations are true, because the division of creation into the gross, subtle, and mental sphere, those 3 spheres are the reflections or shadows of God's nature as knowledge, power, and bliss. Knowledge has as a shadow the mental sphere, power, the subtle sphere, and bliss, the gross sphere. But the gross, subtle, and then let's say Paramatma or God, well, here you can see Subtle is the manifestation of pran, and gross is the manifestation of Akash, right? So it's actually a truthful representation of the cosmos. And in infinite intelligence, we got another trinity of wakefulness, dream, and sound sleep. And sound sleep is the fine, which is back to the God state of latency. Dream corresponds to the subtle, and wakefulness corresponds to the gross. So you see these two models, that is gross, subtle, and let's say God, and gross, subtle, and mental. Both are true. Both are true in different ways. And in the past, I've used this analogy to illustrate it since we're mostly, are we all Americans here? Anyway, let's suppose you had the United States of America, and one person says, looking at plains and mountain ranges, the United States is divisible into three parts. The eastern seaboard up to the Appalachians, the central plains between the Appalachians and the Rockies, and the western part of the country from the Rockies to the Pacific. And somebody else said, nah. The Appalachians don't count. You have two parts of America, the whole part from the East Coast to the Rockies and from the Rockies to the Pacific. Well, whether you describe it one way or another, it's the same country. So this way of representing the cosmos, we're getting in the earlier years this two-sphere model with gross and subtle, and later gross, subtle, and mental. And Baba was always, I think in the later years, kind of standardized and simplified according to the point that he wanted to make at that time. But just be aware that this use of the subtle is not just terminological, it is actually related to a great truth. In this text, it is that the subtle is the manifestation of pran, with this fundamental dichotomy of pran and akash. It's a little wrap on that topic, cosmology.
Love that stuff. Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, I just had a question. Could you go back to table 3, Ward?
Yeah.
Put that up there, and in
Yeah.
the part B, C, and D, you have those 7 colors, and it reminded me of part 7 in God Speaks of the 7 veils.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of what might have been in your mind, or
Yeah, it was stuff like that, I would say.
stuff like that? Okay.
Yeah. The variegated nature of the created universe.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it a good idea or not? We were just, we spent a long time with these things, just trying to come up with a good expression. But this isn't from Baba. This is from these two dunces.
Well, Baba does relate the colors, the 7 colors, to the 7 veils and all
He
of that.
does. He
And so
does.
those 7 colors kind of made me think of that.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah. By the way, in the matter of turning also, and a place where it does come up in God Speaks is the 7-fold veil, as you're mentioning, because when you enter the planes, you reverse yourself and enter in through the openings of the face, through the mouth, the nostrils, the ears, and the eyes. So that's a reversal. Instead of sense going outward, the consciousness goes in through the organs of sense.
Well, Ward, you asked if we liked it. I like those colors because variation in color of this is Baba's reversal of some of the colors at the top, but referred to the different chakras, and the chakras are in the gross world, even though maybe in the future, in the future, when you read about the different cosmological aspects of the human body, you will see that that's an opening into the subtle and then into God, but still on the gross level, those colors represent different chakras until you get to Baba's light blue, which he changed from whatever, purple or dark mauve or whatever.
There is this thing
So
with
I like
this,
that representation of gross there on the human on number 3. mean,
with
that's what,
with this division of energy into 7 parts, and that happens on the 4th plane, we're going to find out later on. It does, I don't know, I don't know much about Kundalini yoga. I mean, I've read a little bit, but Baba did indicate that when you complete the ascent of Kundalini yoga, you wind up on the fifth plane. So maybe that has something to do with the division of energy into 7 parts on the 4th plane. When you completed it, you're on the 5th plane, something like that.
Ellen?
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say that the colors seem appropriate because the rainbow happens when the white light is broken into colors. And essentially it's
Yes.
still all one, but it's the,
Yeah, you get different. Yeah, we were thinking about it that way. It's the fracturing
yeah.
of consciousness into diversity, whereas in the 7th plane, it's all single or white, as you're saying. Yeah.
Any other questions? Sam, do you have your hand up or were you clapping?
I was trying to put up my hand.
Well, I found you. There you
But
go.
you found me.
Yes.
No, I just wanted to say that I really appreciated that table 3, for example. I also noticed that in the 2nd row, there's the subtle loops, and
Yeah.
it's very
Oh,
subtle.
yeah.
But I immediately was kind of delighted when I saw it because it seemed so right.
Yeah.
And then, of course, seeing Baba's flag on the next one was also like, I just think you and Nadia Ward have done an amazing job in making these charts really come to life. Not that they weren't, I mean, they already are fantastic. Just looking at Baba's handiwork and seeing the originals, of course, just adds depth.
Right, right.
But I think you've done a wonderful, amazing job in giving them color and, showing them at their best and helping us to, it helps to grasp this very challenging material.
Yeah, it really does.
So,
And I hadn't even
Well,
noticed the spirals. Thank you for bringing that up.
yeah, I was
The
just delighted
windings
when I
and
saw that. I
scaras,
thought,
yeah.
oh, yeah, got the
Yeah,
theme,
yeah.
and let's carry it through here.
Very good.
Well, thanks so much. We actually spent, got together 3 or 4 days a week for 3 or 4 hours for a year and 3 months. We really spent a lot of time going over and over. I have to take my hat off to Nadia also because, I mean, she did a beautiful, the artistic work I really think is gorgeous. But in addition, she really engaged the material. She really, really did. Spent a lot of time. And, it was kind of an amazing experience because with these diagrams, after working them over and over, I mean, they're so simple, you wouldn't think there's much to it, but there really is a lot. But we would come to places that neither of us had been at the beginning at all. And that's really a sign that Baba is in the process. We really felt that Baba was completely in the process.
Yeah.
By the
It
way,
shows.
this whole idea that you can see, like with this, here's figure 13 and then the key there, that was Marwan Jesawala's idea that part of it is just sort of being transparent. It's sort of like if people are saying, well, where are these diagrams from? Well, we can only put one of the sources, or sometimes we would put 2, but part of it is to be transparent. But it's also cool, isn't it, to sort of see a color diagram and then to see the sources?
Mhm. Very much so. Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so.
You can
They add to each other. Yeah.
They really do. They really do. It's positive enhancement, I think.
Well, it kind of feels like we're winding down.
Mhm.
Elizabeth, one more question?
Oh,
You must
how
have
did you
another
know that?
question.
Yeah, can we see the 5 states of Atma again?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I had noticed those sanskara things. I mean, the loops. Oh, this is kind of crazy, but it might make some sense. How many loops are in each of those ones across the top? And I wonder if it matters.
I think I think it's 7. And this would just be whatever Nadia did with it. It's not any coming from Baba or anything. But is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? It might be 7.
Yeah,
By
I
the
just
w-
wondered if there was any.
Mm.
So basically, there was no particular significance to how many loops went into each frame by knowledge, knower, state, and
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. We were
okay.
just by the way, I mean, I mentioned this before, but you know, from infinite intelligence on through God speaks, Baba was kept developing the different states of God, and the fullest development of that is in God Speaks, the 10 states of God. That's the master exposition of that subject. But in infinite intelligence, you get, this topic keeps coming up. In chapter 9, you get 6 states, as a matter of fact. But this is essentially the states of God. So the original formless God is probably something like the beyond state. The most finite knowledge of ignorance, Adam, would be something like the 4th state of God. God is the embodied soul. This one, the complete knowledge of ignorance, human, that's the 6th state of God at the very bottom of the 10 states of God chart. The complete knowledge of self as Majub, that would be the 8th state of God. And complete knowledge of self and Maya, that would be the 10th state of God. So this is a topic that Baba kept bringing up and coming back to over 25 years. And as I say, in the 10 states of God, it's fullest and by far the master exposition of the topic comes up there.
And he says it's the 10 principal states of God. In some place, I think you said that there might be other states. These are just the principal ones. They're like perspectives on God.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that the 10 states of God chart doesn't bring up, like there's no Om point there, things like that. There's no nirvana state that gets talked about there. All of Baba's charts show things from a certain angle or perspective. And it's really worth studying all of his charts. But this is, of course, a table, not a chart. But here you have the entire created universe between Adam and human. You just have those two. There's no, you know, evolutionary series that's brought up here.
Well, I have a couple of comments that are in the chat that I wanted to bring up before we close down. Here's one from Jay. Jay doesn't have a great connection, so he pastes things in the chat window.
Yeah.
This is a comment from Beams, page 14. The Kundalini enables man consciously to cross the lower planes, and it ultimately merges into the universal cosmic power of which it is a part, and which also is at times described as Kundalini. Ordinarily, Kundalini is the name for the power latent in the individualized soul. The awakened Kundalini cannot by itself take anyone to the 7th plane. When awakened and directed under the guidance of some great yogi, it can give many rare experiences which have both advantages and disadvantages. The important point is that the awakened Kundalini is helpful only up to a certain degree, after which cannot ensure further progress, it cannot dispense with the need for the grace of a perfect master.
Mm.
Good news and bad news there.
That's a great quote. I
Yeah.
keep thinking that this this theme is relevant to that, because you have the division of energy into parts, and we learn later happens on the fourth plane. And Baba brings up the figure of a snake, you know, and the Kundalini is often represented that way, with the Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna, where it's a rising serpent that with its different coils. I mean, that figure is definitely there in Kundalini Yoga. So it occurs to me that this aspect of his teaching about the division into 7 is relevant to that. Baba didn't talk about that all that much.
All right, well, I think it's time to end the recording, which means we want to say the Beloved's Prayer together.
Okay.
So please unmute yourselves and join Ward and I in saying the Beloved's Prayer. Beloved God,
Beloved God,
help us
Help
all
us all to
all
love you
to love you more and more,
more
and more and more,
and still yet more,
still yet more,
till you
till we become worthy
of
union with you.
with you.
help us
And
all
help us all
hold
fast.
Baba's
Baba's Dhamma
Dhamma.
till the very
Very
end.
And
Avatar,
Avatar
Meher
Meher
Baba
Baba
Ki Jai.
Avatar,
Avatar Meher Baba
Baba
Ki
Jai.
Avatar,
Avatar
Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Okay.